Hey everyone, Isaac here. I am on level 5. Last 2 days I've used Rest A token, and that's gone well. I do feel well rested, more or less, although I'm a little tired. I don't want to do any of this. This is a lot. I mean, God, level 5 to get to level 6. 13 push-ups, 13 sit-ups, 13 squats, mile run, 13 pull-ups, 18 pages of a book. It's going to take me forever. I'm going to have to start speed reading. 40 ounces of water. That's actually a lot for me. I have to drink that whole other bottle still. 7 hours of sleep. Too much sleep. Although I never feel that way in the morning. No vape/porn, which is an instant down to level 1, by the way. No over 10% THC. That's been going well. I've been having more dreams lately. I think lowering the strength has been noticeable. 16 minutes of meditation. That should be 18. And stretching. So let's get started. My dad wants to play chess at midnight. I beat him when I was last home, and he was pissed. So he started playing a bunch and like studying and shit. And yeah. He just beat me a few times, so now I want to beat him. He studied so hard, he's better than me now. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully the exercise boosts my brain and shit. Also, I've been eating healthier. Diet's not on this, but, and I don't want to add it yet. I don't really want to add it ever. But I want to eat healthier. So, like, I realized I don't eat enough potassium, and I eat too much sodium. I was looking it up, and, like, if you eat too much sodium, if you eat enough potassium, that can counteract the high sodium a little bit. But I eat too much sodium, and I get like half the amount of potassium I need. So that's like horrible. So I don't have any blood problems or any health concerns now. But if I start building healthy habits with eating and exercise and sleep now, then I don't have to do it when it's like not too late, but like, you know, when it's like absolutely necessary. And this just makes everything so much easier. So I've got lentils, which I've never made before. Lentils, I guess they're high in potassium and folate. Chicken, spinach, all kinds of good stuff. So dinner after this should be awesome. And super low sodium too, high protein. So I'm excited for that. So yeah, so everything's looking good. I just saw the Spy Family movie in theaters, which was awesome. Code White. It was very good. But honestly, I'm more excited to watch Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. That anime is incredible. It is one of the best I've ever seen. It is so good. Oh, it's so wholesome. I'll talk more about that maybe later. But I'm distracting myself with this talk, and so let's get into it. I've been listening to a lot of music while I do this stuff lately, and that's nice, but, you know, maybe I could be more productive by listening to some kind of podcast during my exercise. So I've been wanting to listen to Making Sense lately, so I'm just going to pop that on and listen to some of that podcast while I do my running and exercise. A little less invigorating, but it should be fine. And also, I want to learn how to do a muscle up. I thought maybe I could do one, so I already do pretty decent at pull-ups, so I'm not even close to the muscle up. So maybe I don't think I'll try one because then it will be harder for me to get my pull-ups in. But, I mean, just to let you know, I'm not even close to the muscle up yet. Like, I'm not even close. I was even trying to learn the technique, this little swing and a little kipping. But, yeah, that is... But now, by level 100, I will for sure be able to do a muscle up. Hopefully by level, I don't know, 20 or something. But no more Rest A tokens, which means if I don't do my exercises and stuff today, I level down. And we can't be having that, so let's get started. Now remember, I don't have to do this all at one go, but it's, you know, better if I can. So I'm going to try to bust out all of these in one set. Not necessarily right after another, but like, you know, I'm going to do the 13 pull-ups in a row and the 13 sit-ups in a row. Well, that would be easy, but the pull-ups and the running is going to be tough. 13 pull-ups in a row is a lot. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but I'm going to try my best. And a mile run, I should be able to do, but you're going to see me die. So, Alright, let's go. No more slacking. episode is Knowledge Work with Cal Newport. Alrighty.
Welcome to the Making Sense Podcast.
Yeah.
This is Sam Harris. Well, there's a lot going on in the world. Iran recently attacked Israel to minimal effect, happily. I think there's one casualty at this point. Anyway, there'll be more to say about that soon enough. I will wait until I can do a proper podcast on the topic of Iran and what to do about it. Today I'm speaking with Cal Newport. Cal is a professor of computer science at Georgetown University, where he's also a founding member of the Center for Digital Ethics. Cal is also a New York Times bestselling author and a frequent contributor to The New Yorker. He also hosts the Deep Questions podcast. And Cal's most recent book is Slow Productivity, The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout. And we talk about the book today. We generally discuss information technology and the cult of productivity. We talk about the state of social media, the academic in exile effect, free speech and moderation.
I'm wondering what that
The
is.
effect of the pandemic on knowledge work.
Academic exile?
And then
Sounds
we
like
get into
me.
the book. We talk about Jane Austen as an example of traditional productivity, managing up in an organization, defragmenting one's work life, doing fewer things, reasonable deadlines, trading money for time, how we will find meaning in a post-scarcity world, the anti-war movement, the effects of artificial intelligence on knowledge work, and other topics. And now right here, Cal Newport. I am here with Cal Newport. Cal, thanks for joining me again.
Sam, it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
So we're going to talk about your new book, Slow Productivity, The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout. But before we do, I first have to thank you. I think I must have thanked you by email in the intervening year and a half since we last spoke. But you, as you know, you were the final domino to fall that led me to get off Twitter. And as I've said, really every time I've touched this topic on this podcast and elsewhere, I'm just embarrassed to have discovered what a great life hack that was. I mean, it was diagnostic of how much a problem Twitter had become for me. But I just must thank you for your influence and your wisdom on that front and your actual intervention. I mean, you just straight up told me you thought I should get off Twitter in our podcast, and your voice was definitely in my head when I finally pulled the plug. So thank you.
I mean, you're welcome. I enjoyed and found fascinating the reaction to you leaving Twitter. I don't know if this is how you experienced it, but to me, it's what I imagine it's like when your buddy at the bar stops drinking. Because people got mad that you left. I can't imagine being mad about someone stopping doing something. But people, it is as if they took it personally, as far as I could tell. Like, what do you mean you're leaving Twitter? What's wrong? I thought that was as instructive as hearing about what your experience has been like after you left.
Yeah, people did get mad, and from the top down. I mean, Elon Musk was one of the people who got quite mad. It was interesting. I mean, obviously, much of the reaction I didn't see because I was no longer on Twitter, but I got a lot of it in my inbox. Many people immediately reached out, worried that I was suffering some kind of mental health crisis. I mean, how do you delete your Twitter account apart from being in extremis? But it's been wholly good and
It's a third of the way there.
allowed me to not just pay attention more to things I actually care about, but just it's allowed me to reflect on what my engagement with Twitter has become. And it was, I think people's negative reaction to it is to some degree understandable, because my decision really wasn't just for me and my perception of what Twitter was done to my own mind. It is an implicit and even explicit, every time I talk about it, condemnation of what I think social media has done to have fairly benign experiences on these platforms. But for most of the so-called elites, journalists and scientists and public figures who think they are condemned to use this so-called digital town square to maintain their reputations and build their brands and all of that, and just stay in touch with what's going on in the world, it's become so dysfunctional. And I don't think I can't recall if this came up in our conversation, but one of the reasons why I left was not so much my awareness of what it had done to me, but the obvious evidence of what it was doing to Elon, not as the owner of the platform, but just as its most prominent user. And I just saw it was kind of staring into the funhouse mirror of his life derangement, which was quite obviously happening as a result of his addiction to the platform. I then began to reflect on the way in which I was sharing in that symptomology, albeit somewhat differently, but still, once I pulled the plug, it was like I had almost like a digital phantom limb syndrome. And in fact, it was analogous to amputating a phantom limb, because I felt that the pain I was experiencing was happening in a space that wasn't quite real ever. The digital reputation you imagine you're maintaining isn't quite, you can't quite say it's not your reputation. Obviously it is your reputation, but it is almost a second presence in your mind and life, which doesn't totally map onto your life in real social space with real people in the real world. Even with the same people you might be fighting with online, when you actually meet them face to face, those conversations are different. And so it was like amputating a phantom limb, and I just can't say enough about what a positive change it's been. It's been quite incredible.
Well, I did some writing about this more recently, and I had you in mind a little bit when I was speaking about this. I wrote this New Yorker essay.
They're thinking about each other.
And one of the big questions I have is, why did we come to believe that the right way to use the internet to have discussions, to sort of surface ideas, to spread news, why did we think the right way to do this was to try to get everyone to use the same global platform? And we take this for granted as like, of course, this is what you should do. We should have everyone use the same global conversation platform. If we're all on the platform, we all can see each other. But of course, the reality, and I sort of laid this out in the article, is we have 500 million tweets being generated per day. And the average person is going to see 100 in their feed. What you have to do is just incredibly aggressive curation, right? Because there's just, you can't have 500 million people using the same platform and yet have a sort of globalized, centralized, zeitgeisty feed where you're trying to surface a small number of trends for everyone to see. This requires incredible curation, this sort of amazing cybernetic, part algorithm, part human, part network theory powered curation that Twitter uses. And it's of course that incredibly aggressive curation that makes this a platform that just fuels outrage, that fuels the darker side of people. And one of the arguments I made in that article is, here's what works better. Small communities that have weak, tight connections between them. You have lots of small communities online that have overlapping membership. We know from network theory, really interesting ideas can spread to this network of networks. Really important news will spread to these network of networks. But most of your interaction in this sort of digital vision is going to be with a small number of other people that have a sort of emergent, shared sort of community standard. It's much richer, much more personal. That's really what the internet envisioned. Everyone is going to have a possibility to be connected to everyone else. Not everyone actually needs to be directly connected to everyone else on the same platform. So I've really been thinking about the folly of global conversation platform as one of the key follies of the sort of 2010s internet.
Yeah, I think when we last spoke, you were pretty bearish on the major social media networks, because I think it was because you thought TikTok had successfully disrupted everything because they weren't relying on the social graph that Facebook and Twitter had a first mover advantage where they got all of us to build out our social networks in this common space, and that was really that and some algorithmic gaming of the system was really the basis of surfacing content, and as we all know, it privileged outrage and kind of a negatively biased engagement. But what TikTok did is that it just never even went in the direction of establishing a social graph. It just used a pure algorithmic surfacing of entertainment, and insofar as the social media platforms have had to emulate TikTok, maybe Twitter's still an exception here, but certainly Facebook or Instagram. Do you still think that the writing is still on the wall for the major platforms, or do you think they're going to figure out how to still claim the better part of humanity for the rest of our lives?
I still feel strong about that hypothesis. I mean, I think we see, for various reasons, but we see the dethroning of Twitter as having that same central cultural status it had before. TikTok, we see, for example, like my argument was about TikTok is without this entrenched advantage of my social graph is in there. I've already spent years trying to set up follower networks, and I said the connection to TikTok would be very superficial and weak, and we are seeing that. I think last year, for example, there was double-digit drops in TikTok users among the sort of 20, especially the upper 20s and in the 30s, that sort of demographic, it's sort of young adult demographics at enough. And they really had no problem leaving because what's actually connecting there, it's a very zeitgeisty platform that people can take or leave. I mean, Instagram is holding it there, but I don't think it has that same, again, centrality that it might have had 2 or 3 years ago. And the alternatives, independent media, so podcasting, email newsletters, these really are ascendant in the last year and a half since we've talked. And that's the opposite of the centralized platform model, because this is independently produced information. People discover these things almost entirely through point-to-point curated trust. Someone I know forwarded me an email newsletter, I signed up. Someone I know told me about this podcast. I started listening to this podcast, they mentioned another podcast, now I listen to that one. That distributed trust model of curation, as opposed to a centralized algorithmic model, I think really works well, and we're seeing that, right? So I remain bearish on the idea of a small number of social platforms that dominate internet culture.
Yeah, one of the biggest changes for me, which I didn't anticipate, was that shutting down my Twitter account changed my relationship as a producer of content, as somebody with a fairly large platform. It changed my relationship to my own engagement with current events and the world of ideas and just my audience. It just changed the time course of everything. So when you're on Twitter, you feel an obligation to react to something that everyone is reacting to, or at least you have to consider whether or not you should, right? So you're just, something happens in the news and everyone is forwarding a specific article or dunking on some response to current events, and because it's just implicit, you have the platform, you have a massive audience, you're part of this conversation, what are you going to say about it? And no longer having that outlet, the time course of my response to everything has slowed way down. And so, now I have this podcast, and I podcast more or less once a week. And so I really have the better part of a week to decide whether I should say anything about what just happened, in Ukraine or anywhere else. And, most things, I would say 99% of things don't survive that interval, right? It's just, there's no reason for me to react to the thing that happened 4 days ago, and it has been memory hold for almost everyone at this point. And so it's just changed my relationship to information, to the news, to my own sense of just how I needed to think and talk about things. And I really wasn't anticipating that. There's probably something lost there. I mean, there are moments in public conversation where it's probably an advantage to be able to say something immediately, and you're part of the first things that are getting said are something you're contributing to. But I don't know, there's so much more noise than signal there, and just the feeling of moving through the day is so different when it's not being punctuated by dozens of interruptions, but with just to see what was said, or to decide whether you're going to say something about this next thing that happened. It's just, honestly, it feels like I've just come out of some kind of decade-long flirtation with mental illness. I mean, I just, it's not actually too strong a way to put it. It's just, it is a profound relief. I mean, it's, and a humbling one, really.
Yeah. Do you find it surprising the number, I'm thinking journalists in particular, who very much dislike Elon Musk, right? So they have a sort of moral, personal, ethical commitment to stop using his platform. And they'll talk about, I don't like what's happening on X, I don't like Elon Musk. And yet almost none of them have left. I find that interesting. I think, again, I think there's something interesting in that, where it would, for a lot of people who are writing like in tech journalism, business journalism, who really clearly dislike Elon Musk, still can't bring themselves to leaving the platform, which again, I think speaks to something interesting about the way the platform plays, especially people with some sort of public profile, the way it plays and how they understand their influence on the world and their impact. But to me, that's been the more interesting observation of the post-Musk period, is actually how rare you still are.
All right.
Which is, I thought there'd be a lot more.
Oh, it really wasn't that bad.
A lot more people saying, yeah, I'm just leaving.
13
People are having a hard
pull-ups.
time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do have to recognize that I'm immensely lucky to have already built my platform in the ways that I built it, so that I didn't feel that really I was putting anything in jeopardy by just pulling the plug on my social media presence. I mean, I still have a minor presence in the sense that my team puts out stuff on the various platforms. It's just a sheer marketing, right? So but those are always much smaller accounts, and because everyone knows it's not me, people are much less interested in it. So, I mean, those are just maintained in a perfunctory way. But I think most people who are still building
I don't know what that means.
their reputations as writers or journalists, or certainly people in politics, feel that they just can't forsake the opportunity to build an audience there, and they certainly can't pull the plug on a large audience already built if they're busy, whittling away on their various projects and just see no other way to effectively market them. I mean, I just think everyone's been captured by it, and what's more, there's just this sense that if you're not there, you don't know what's actually happening as soon as you need to know it. I mean, especially if you're a journalist. And I mean, the thing is that it's so distorting of priorities and of real information. I mean, I see so many people in the podcast space and in the alternative media space pushed around by misinformation and conspiracy thinking, and even when they're occasionally right about something, I mean, occasionally there's a conspiracy theory that really turns out to be true. It's just so, everyone's priorities are so upside down, and there's just this, what is engineered for, this is now kind of outside of mainstream channels. I mean, this wouldn't be true of the New Yorker where you write, but it's just, out in what I call Podcastistan and Substackistan, it has created this new religion of anti-establishment thinking, where it's just the alternative explanation of everything is the thing that we're now going to spend 90% of our time talking about. And it's just so often wrong and misleading and deranging that, I mean, it has made me increasingly worried that we have, politically, certainly in the aftermath of COVID, rendered ourselves almost ungovernable in how we talk about, attempt to have a conversation about what used to be the world of facts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is one of the more engaging human psychological experiences, is this idea of most people were thinking this, but then me and my group figured out that is true, right? That inversion, the inversion of the empiricism structure is incredibly engaging, and it occurs every once in a while in reality. Everyone was thinking this, and then we realized DNA is a double helix. It's like amazing. Online culture, especially algorithmic-driven online culture,
5 more.
has given a way to basically commodify that and spread that. Like we can create. You can build an entire epistemology around. Everyone thinks this is true, but it's really bad. Everyone thinks this is bad for you, it's good. Everyone thinks this about this disease, but it's that. Everyone thinks that, and you can build an entire epistemology around that. Like your entire world can be that, and there can be a whole audience that's just going to reward that. The algorithm is going to reward that. So I have definitely seen that as well. There's a well-known effect among professors called the sort of academic in exile or academic in the wilds effect, which is if you take an academic and then they leave academia. You know, they go independent. 8 times out of 10, they go to some really conspiratorial places. And partially what's going on here is, well, first of all, they're smart. So like it completely makes sense to them that I could figure something out that other people didn't understand because I'm very smart. But one of the purposes and like services academia plays is there's this checking mechanism. Everyone else is smart too, and so when you're like, hey, I think, look, here's this whole new way of seeing it. The Earth is hollow. You have all these other smart people being like, here's why you're dumb, and they take you down, right? But when you leave, you have this academic exile, and this is sort of like Linus Pauling with vitamin megadose. Right? It's much higher rate now in the age of social media. Because now, when you leave, you can immediately algorithmically have constructed an audience that cheers you on. Yeah. And so now, I think the severity of academic and exile effect is much more pronounced and much more ubiquitous than it used to be. When you sort of leave academia to start your podcast, it's not too long until, you know, there's world-changing conspiracies that you're uncovering. And it could be medical, and it could be governmental, and it doesn't matter. And so I think that effect is like one of the more interesting effects that's been happening. Is that you can get a cheering section, and the algorithmically constructed cheering section of people that you're being rewarded for saying, I think this is the way it really happens. And you know, you see this all the time. I like podcastistan as a term. This idea of there can be 100 studies saying something, but if there's one study saying something different, the way you perceive that is, well, everyone knows now that thing's not true. It's this interesting sort of sampling of evidence, this sort of destabilization of Bayesian priors that is amplified and supported in the world of algorithmically disseminated information.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, this is you just described an effect that I've referred to, I believe previously, as watching people get radicalized by their own audience, right? I mean, that cheering section has the effect of people notice the signal in their own audience, and then they begin to cater to that signal, and then there's just this ratchet effect where it just gets, you know, crazier and crazier, and there's more and more sunk cost reputationally for having been the guy who was sure that there's so many examples of this in the midst of COVID that focus on vaccines and medical conspiracies, etc. You go all in, and then you'd have to completely repudiate how you spent the last 12 months if you were going to have a second thought and anyone was going to talk any sense into you.
Yep.
So there's one thing that reliably confuses people here around the norms of our online conversation, and it's the analogy of Twitter being the so-called digital town square, and this notion that a commitment to free speech should more or less bar the door to any kind of, you know, real moderation policy, right? Like what you want is a total free-for-all where the best idea wins, and sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? So we should be able to entertain any notion at whatever scale, for however long, in proximity to any other world events, and any effort to put your thumb on the scale to deplatform Alex Jones or to try to clean up a digital sewer that's introducing bias by definition, and worse, it's actually just a repudiation of, you know, free speech in the constitutional sense, and it's forsaking the best error correcting mechanisms we have, which are just let everything suffer collision with everything else and see what wins, right? And so the you know, people never, when they're championing this, you know, commitment to something like free speech absolutism, they never take a moment to recognize that there are places online that are much closer to the absolute than Twitter ever was, and no one wants to be there. I mean, places like 4chan and 8chan, I mean, that's where you really get your absolutes, right? Where you can just, you know, I mean, everything up to child pornography might populate your feed. But there's also just this point that is also overlooked, which you just referenced, which is the algorithmically boosted aspect of the speech, which changes the nature of what speech is online. So perhaps you could just give me your thoughts on how you view this tension between our commitment to free speech, our commitment to leveraging the wisdom of the crowd insofar as it exists and to correcting errors at scale, but this need to not suffer the 4chanification of everything in our digital lives.
Yeah, well, I think the town square, it's the
Chanification.
town square analogy that's causing the problem here, right? The concept of a town square, the sort of central gathering place where people can democratically discuss, depends on scale being reasonable, right? I mean, we call it the town square, we don't call it the city or the state square, right? Because it's a place where the demos in Athens, we sort of relatively constrained group of people who all know each other and have other ties to each other. You have other social trust ties to each other. We live in the same town. I run the hardware store that you come to buy your nails.
Interesting.
Them to come together, there's this free speech notion of, well, we don't want to, by fiat in advance, say here are topics that are off limits, because how are we going to work together to advance what we understand? Twitter is not a town square, right? When you have 500 million users, that's not a town square, it's an entertainment product. We have 500 million users who are inputting lots of different possible bits of content that could be interesting. We're going to run them through this cybernetic curation algorithms. This is what I mean by that is there's algorithms involved, but it's also the expansion properties of the underlying follower graph means that individual decisions to retweet or not retweet, so these are human decisions interacting with these digital networks, can create these cascades of information spreading. That's a lot about how trends arise. It's a really powerful actual curation mechanism. It's unlike TikTok, which is purely algorithmic. On Twitter, it's cybernetic. And so you have these digital networks with good expansion properties and 100 million people making individual decisions whether or not to click retweet or not, whether to quote tweet or not, so which is a whole interesting sort of computer science question. All of this aimed towards how can we take this giant pool of potential content and choose the sort of small number of streams of content that are going to be relatively globalized or interesting and engaging. That's not a town square. It's an entertainment product. It's why in a New Yorker piece I wrote right after Musk took over Twitter, is I said it's not the town square, it's much more the Coliseum. That's much more the better idea. It's tons of people watching carefully curated entertainment. In that context, of course, you have all sorts of thumbs on the scale. Like the whole point is we're trying to put on this show. And I think of like the trending topics of the day as the show on the Coliseum floor with all the huge crowds just watching and chiming in to see the blood sport between, hey, Sam today is having a war with, whoever, right? This is the entertainment for today. It's an entertainment product. Of course the thumb is on the scale because you're trying to find something that like just pushes the buttons right. Maybe there's some outrage, but not too much. Maybe it's absurd, but not in a sort of 8chan, like completely over the top, lols type absurd. You're trying to program a television station. You're trying to program entertainment in a Coliseum. It's not a town square. Now, if you have actual digital town squares, like here's a place where like a small number of people who have other ties to each other are gathering to think things through and talk things through. I mean, we've seen examples of those can have a wide variety of different community standards, including standards where almost anything is going to go on this discussion group. But it works because we're all whatever, lumberjacks from this part of the country. We sort of have other ties to each other. And so I think it's that town square metaphor that threw us off. Because we took this entertainment product and somehow tried to make it seem like this was the Roman Senate. Like this is where just like this reasonable scaled group of people were getting together to hash things out. And that's never what they were actually trying to do there.
It seems reasonable to have made this mistake, though. I mean, the structure you're positing, like a network of networks online, that at least is implied on Twitter because you have the people you're following and you have the people who are following you, and that's not all of Twitter, right? It's just you're just tending to see what you're following, and everyone sees, everyone who's following you sees what you react to, and that's its own little space. Why is that so easily corrupted by being in contact with the rest of the ocean of information?
Well, what ends up happening on Twitter is that more local interactions just get swamped out by the ultra amplified content, right? And increasingly their feed is driven by this. So there's some stuff in there from people you straight follow, but the feed is algorithmically sorted, and one of the major criteria on which things are sorted for your feed is their engagement across the network. So really what's happened is it's the content that has really gained this big boosting effect, this sort of cascade of retweets leading to retweets. That's what's being programmed for. And there's some conceptual regionalization. So if you follow a lot of a certain type of people, you might be seeing what's really being amplified in that subgroup. That's true. There's some of that going on as well, but it's a really large scale at which a lot of this is happening, and especially when it comes to the most town squarey piece of this, which is discussions of politics, discussions of policy, discussions of world events, the sort of the stuff we think of as the grist of civic discussion. Those are incredibly large subnetworks in which information is spreading. And that's where you really have the Coliseum effect. You know, it's people competing to get their turn on the Coliseum floor. They have their trident ready. And that's like that most civic-minded aspect that we associate with Twitter, I think is the most entertainment-centric.
Yeah, and the most corrupting of our conversation about important topics, because one of the thumbs on the scale here is outrage, and outrage is a word we keep using in this context, and it seems to have been, I mean, at least in my hearing, it doesn't quite convey the attitude that one sees so often online, which is, it really is kind of in-group sanctimony and out-group contempt, right? You're expressing contempt for the out-group to your in-group. It's a simulacrum of conversation. I mean, sometimes you're actually, someone's responding to somebody else, but it's almost always a bad faith response. It's a response that is meant to be enjoyed by the in-group that despises the target of the remark in the out-group, and it's so obviously driving us apart at the level of society. Again, not when you're talking about how beautiful a full solar eclipse is, but when you're talking about politics or anything that is polarizing.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you on this, right? It does that. And you're auditioning when you comment on someone's tweet. You're auditioning for the algorithm, the sort of cybernetic amplification effect. So everyone tries to one-up each other. I mean, I hear a lot from people, what they're worried about mainly is not the contempt from the other side, but the in-group policing, I think, has had a massive impact.
Yeah.
You see it in journalism, you see it in academia, you see it in sort of theoretical frameworks, you certainly see it to some degree in politics. Though it's interesting, politicians, they're so used to that, it's almost as if they're the one group that at least sort of understands the sociodynamics of something like Twitter. Like, this is sort of their lives, is, in-group policing, out-group contempt, being okay with, like, these people are upset, who am I going to hitch my wagon to, putting their finger to the wind. But for most other people aren't used to that. And so it's definitely an effect that makes you either cower or makes you conform. Look, I only get some taste of this, like, when I'm doing book tours, right? Because I'm not on social media, so I'm not subject to people talking about me in these sort of contexts. When you have a book out, people do talk, you get reviews, and people come out to talk about your book or whatever. And I hate it. I couldn't imagine if that was just all the time. There's like all the time, that was the world I was in. It's like every week I have to get like the 2 or 3 people that are like taking their swing at me or whatever. I mean, that would drastically affect, I'm sure, what I write about, how I went through my life, just like the subjective well-being. Yes, I was really hoping for Elon to destabilize Twitter so much that it essentially collapse. Like, it would actually be like a great civic duty that he would have done. But it seems to be holding on to some degree, at least as far as I can tell, which is, I think, unfortunate.
Yeah, well, he's destabilized something, and it's been his own brain. But it's just, he really is a cautionary tale at this point, and that has always been my concern about his engagement with Twitter, not so much what he was going to do to the platform. For the longest time, I remained agnostic as to whether or not he could actually significantly improve it. Doesn't seem likely to me now, but I'm not really in touch with what it's become. But it's just, as for its effect on him, one of the most productive people in any generation, it hasn't been good. Let's turn to your book, because it's really, I mean, you've written a series of books that have targeted the same kind of object here, which is a life well lived, right? I mean, the question is, like, how do we answer the question, what is life good for, right? I mean, the people, especially when you get to a certain level of privilege and abundance and just sheer good luck, and this is almost by definition much of our audience, for a podcast like this or for a book like yours, and we're talking about people who have the time to think about how to improve their lives and how to live more wisely and get to a place where they more and more are not regretting how they use their time. I mean, that does suggest at least a few degrees of freedom there in the kinds of choices they make. Presumably, if you're listening to this podcast, you're not digging a ditch in the sun under the lash of some tyrant, right? So you seem to be, at least implicitly and rather often explicitly, asking these types of questions. You're just like, what is the point of all of this? What does winning the game actually look like? And in this most recent book, you're talking about a new approach to productivity, which you say is a lost art. So you're suggesting that we were once much better at this. Well, let's just start with your basic concept. What do you mean by slow productivity, and how have we lost touch with it?
Well,
That's a good place to pause the podcast. That was really hard. I got it all done at once as well. The only thing I didn't do straight up is the pull-ups. I had to break that up. I mean, it's 13 pull-ups. And, I didn't even take a break to read like last time when I put the push-ups at the end. So, I mean, I'm proud of myself. That was extremely hard. I did the whole mile without stopping, which has been a really hard thing for me in the past. It's actually only something I've done a few times, maybe 10. So that's cool. Man. Guys, tomorrow... I mean, I'll have a rest day token if I absolutely need it, but... Shit. To get to level 7, I have to run 1.2. Level 8, 1.4. Level 9, 1.6. Level 10, 1.8. It's almost 2 miles in one day. I kind of want to run 2 miles in one day just because it's just the natural. Like 1.8 isn't really the place I want to stop at that. So maybe at level 10 I'll give. Ugh. Okay. That's how you know you got a good pump in. Whew. Anyways. Yeah. This is a 1.8, it's not very climatic, but yeah, how many pull-ups will it be? 15 at level to 7. 17 to level 8. 19 to level 9. 21 pull-ups to level 10. Bro, I don't know if I can get to level 10, bro. This is gonna be so hard. And I want to make it to level 100? Oh, bruh. Alrighty. Well, summer break. This is what I signed up to do. Well, and, however long I keep doing this. But, maybe forever. Alright. Time for the reading. I've got chess to play soon. Damn, it's already 11:30. Whew. It's already kind of late. Whew, man. Ah. Fuck. One sec. Man. We'll listen to the rest of that podcast later. Can you really see me? It doesn't look like the camera can see me. It's better. This is Echophrasia by Monobody. Alright, how many pages? 18? Fuck. Should have thought more about this progression system. It's too hard. Well, that means it's just hard enough, right? Alright, 18 pages. The first... I'm at page 149 to start chapter 12, which proves I did my reading over the past 2 days. I also did my meditations. I can show you in the app if anyone insists, which is the Waking Up app is what I use. But yeah, technically I could just skip to this page and not have read the last one, of course, but I'm just gonna have to take my word for it. Alright. Law of least effort. Hey, he's talking about gun, germs, and steel. The Diamond Collection. My buddy Chad has a few of Jared Diamond's books, and he calls it his Diamond Collection. Oh, he's such a nerd. I love that guy. Whew, my god. Oh, almost lost the page. By the way, if you're watching this, that's great. But kind of the idea of these videos is one, and the main idea is proof that I did all this stuff and accountability for me. Sorry. But, you know, what I'd love for you to get out of it is if you did leveling up stuff with me. So if you played this video and, like, exercised or read or, you know, whatever you think you should do for leveling up, I think it'd be cool if you did it alongside me, and this video is like motivation or something. Feel free to watch and play it in the background for motivation, or I mean, do it the hell you want to do, but, you know, that's just something I would like to get out, other people to get out of it. I think it could be cool. Whatever, I'm distracting myself. Time to read. Oh yeah, what page do I need to go to? 18? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And it's the end of the chapter, so I need to get to chapter 14. Alright. 2 chapters today. Yeah. Conventional wisdom holds that motivation is the key to habit change. Maybe if you really wanted it, you'd actually do it. But the truth is, our real motivation is to be lazy and do what is convenient. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Oops. Meditation is not an obstacle to feeling calm, but whatever. There's a lot more behind meditation. The idea behind Make It Easy is not to only do easy things. The idea is to make it as easy as possible in the moment to do things that pay off in the long run. That's very savage. A nasty scar. Addition by subtraction. Aquarius Theater by Floral. I always thought that song was called, this song was called Aquarian Theater. Anyway. Yeah, this song's too sad. Through Bone and Marrow by Foxhole. It's all instrumental, but it's very depressing. This is Cut and Shut by You Slut. By You Slut. I guess I never noticed that. The band's name is You Slut! Exclamation point. And the song is Cut and Shut by You Slut. By You Slut. Why is By You Slut, which is the band, in the name of the song? That's funny. This band's really good. They should have more listeners. Only 15,000 monthly listeners. I love these guys. Turn up. You hear that? That's some good shit. Sweet Nothings by Pliny. Real cool space themed math rock band. Sithui is also a good one like that. I like Pliny a little more. I should listen to more Pliny. I honestly don't know very many other songs. I should listen to more of them. Reduce the friction associated with your good habits and increase the friction associated with your bad habits. Fair enough. Whew. It's already midnight. I do that. Reset the room thing. That's a good point. Proactively lazy. LOL. This is You Need a Hammock by Dios Trio. I think I really know them very well. Song's pretty sick. Listen to their next two most popular songs. I read so slow. Dad's ready for chess. I'll finish this chapter and then I'll read the next chapter. Once I beat him. This song is sick as fuck. I'll be back. Jesus. Kind of an abrupt ending. Mirror House by Via Luna. A little bit of a bad mood. I was just playing my last chess game with my dad, and it resigned me. Chess.com resigned me. And I was in the app, looking at it. I was no network connection, was faulty, nothing. I'm playing the game, and it said, "You have resigned." Bullshit, dude. I'm pissed. I'm in a horrible mood right now. I was about to beat him, too. And there's no reason to be in a bad mood. I already set up the game. We're gonna continue it tomorrow, but it was our tiebreaker for a game we've been playing, for games we've been playing for 2 weeks, and it was a really built up moment, and now it's just not gonna be the same. It felt good to vent that a little bit. Just chess, who cares? I care, literally. Fuck you, chess.com. Stargazer by Ben Rosset and Waxamillion, Kevin Dill. I can't believe how much that put me in a bad mood. I've been having a great day all day. It's been amazing. And auto-resigning from a chess game has totally 180'd my mood. Which is stupid. I can feel it though. I feel the frustration. It's surprisingly, it was a little too intense for what happened. Starting to feel a little better. Gateway habit. You have to standardize or you can optimize. toe by toe. Black Knight Golden Circus by Strawberry Girls. explanation. I stayed up a little bit later than I would have liked. So I need to get this over with because I need to upload this video before night. I need to eat dinner. I need to do some more grading. I need to get ready for tomorrow. And I have to be in bed by 4:30. Shit. I'm running behind. Alright. 18 minutes.
Just close your eyes. And become aware of the energy of your body all at once. And become aware of the energy of your body all at once.
1 second, I can hear the... Alright.
Just close your eyes. And become aware of the energy of your body all at once. Notice whatever appears: pressure, heaviness, tingling, temperature, movement. Just the raw data of experience. And see if you can do this immediately. Just recognize that consciousness is wide open, unobstructed, and everything is spontaneously appearing in its own place. You don't have to move toward anything or away. You don't, in fact, have to pay attention. And as you feel the energy of your body, notice whether you're feeling it in all directions. Not just the front of your body, but the back, and out to the sides, and above and below. And are there really directions here? The moment you notice you're lost in thought, see if you can recognize the thought itself as an appearance in the same condition. Where is a thought in relation to the energy of your body? Is it in some other place? And now, gently open your eyes and notice the full field of light and color that appears. How does this relate to the energy of your body, or to sounds, or thoughts? See if you can let the totality of your experience resolve itself into a single sphere of appearances. last minute of the session, drop all your efforts. Just let your mind rest. Notice whatever appears on its own without trying to correct anything or modify it or grasp it. Just do absolutely nothing. Well, once again, thank you for the efforts you're making here. And I'll see you back here soon for the next daily meditation.
Alrighty. Well, I feel much better. I did some cognitive reframing, and now there can be anticipation built up for that chess game, right? And it's just a chess game. Like, a little bothered that I got that upset by it, but it happens. It's chemical, emotional, whatever. That's what, thankfully, this meditation practice and exercising, reading, all of this stuff. Good sleep, right? Helps with emotional regulation. I really want time to be able to smoke cannabis. Weak cannabis, of course, but some at least, and watch my show I've been watching, Freerun, like I mentioned earlier. I was stoked to watch it tonight, but I will definitely not have time now. But that's okay, I don't have to do that every night. So honestly, it's probably a good thing. So, good behavior change in that direction too. It's 2:12, so I still have 2 hours before bedtime. So I need to eat soon, so I need to eat right now because you don't want a big meal before 2 hours before sleeping. I need a big meal. So I'm gonna eat, upload, finish homework, go to bed. See you guys tomorrow. Or maybe you won't if I use a rest day token, but I don't think I will. I'll probably see you guys tomorrow.